On this episode, I respond to a Swedish dude who's asking me my advice whether he should migrate to Australia for real estate reasons. Interesting. You hear my answer. Hey guys, welcome to another edition in the GT show. This one's unique. This one, I've just had a message all the way from Sweden where Jonathan Malm, I hope I'm pronouncing that the right way, Jonathan Malm is asking about moving to Australia. He's saying that in Sweden, here's what's interesting, in Sweden, it's a minimum bachelor's degree, so I assume like here in Australia, 3 or 4 year degree before you can become a listing and selling real estate agent. And then Jonathan goes on to say that he feels that perhaps the opportunity for wealth building after a higher barrier to entry. So it's almost like some of our careers here in Australia. You go to uni for 3 or 4 years, and then you come out to a $40,000 paying job. It sounds like it's that potentially over there in Sweden in real estate. And so he's asking, should I move to Australia? And he does say preferably Sydney. I don't know why, mate. Southeast Queensland. That's where you want. You want Brisbane. You want Gold Coast. You want Sunshine Coast. I'm just kidding, man. Sydney's great. But he's saying, should I move to Australia because the success opportunities sound like they are more in Australia than they are in Sweden? So I guess, look, first off, I'm going to preface my entire answer with, man, who knows? These are some big decisions that you know what? My answer is going to not give you an answer because, mate, for you to ask a complete stranger with a couple of paragraphs on Facebook, which I appreciate the message, mate. I appreciate the love. I appreciate that you're studying these success principles on the other side of the world. Man, don't take my non-answer as in any other way other than, man, it's impossible to answer such a big question from such limited information, not knowing anything about you, your background, your history, your life, your wants, your desires, your needs, your loved ones, your family, who you're responsible to over there, whether you're going to bring them. All of those variables need to be taken into account. So these are the things I want you to question. First thing I want you to question is, why do you want to move? Like, if truly you're only wanting to move because you feel that Sydney, you'll be instantly successful and $1 million agent, whereas in Sweden, it's much harder. Well, man, it's hard here too. I get that what you see on my videos is constantly agent after agent after agent earning hundreds of thousands and from time to time millions of dollars. Do they earn that amount of money? Absolutely they do. In some of the cases, they've shown me their group certificates, they've shown me their back end, they've shown me their contracts, they've shown, because I have had a lot of people who only earn $40,000 or $50,000 a year, questioning me as their coach, saying, oh, Chris Gilmore doesn't really earn that much, oh, he's lying. And I think, dude, have a look at the listings on realestate.com. Is he really lying? Have a look at the signs when you drive around his area. Is he really lying, or do you just not believe you can do it? So if you can't do it, then why should Chris be? You know what I mean? It must be something about. So I know many of them do it. I know it. I've seen it. I've been in their offices. I've seen their paperwork. I've seen their contracts. Yes, they earn it. But the average real estate agent here in Australia, the average earns, like, I've seen a few figures bandied around. One just recently was 50,000, just 49,500 or something like that, right? So if the average is 50 to 70 grand a year, the highest one I ever found was 77,000, and that included the principal licensees, like the bosses, the owners of the company. So if the average is 50 to 70, and that sample size includes folks like Chris Gilmore earning, $1.5 million, folks like Tom Carlin, Michael Spillane, Matt Steinway, I could go on and on and on with the $1 million performers that I know and work with. If they are included in that sample size of, now I'm no mathematician, so you'll have to figure out in Sweden, you guys probably know way more about maths than I do. But understand that if these $1 million performers are in the sample and the sample averages out at 50 grand, 70 grand, whatever, that means most are earning 40 grand. That means, so my question to you is it more lucrative here in Australia than in Sweden? Or is there just much chance for success over there and you're just not doing the things? Like, Are there $1 million performers over there? What's your average commission over there? These are the things. If the average commission to transact a house in a given area is a few $1,000s even, a few $1,000s, because sometimes you know that transacting a real estate transaction might only take, now sometimes I know it takes weeks and weeks and weeks with, 20 hours a week for 10 weeks. I know that. But sometimes when you get the marketing right, when you get the pricing right, you run maybe one open house for a couple of hours, 3 or 4 people decide they want to buy it. There's a few hours of negotiating an open house and the job's done. If you get paid $5,000 or something for that, or a significant amount of money, then I wonder if you could make it work there and not have to migrate, leave your family or leave whatever. Now, so that's the first thing I want you to ask. I want you to question whether that overall principle is true. Is it true? Now, I don't know. I don't know Sweden from Barisov. The thing you want to figure out is, are you well remunerated over there to sell a home? Now, if you're only remunerated the equivalent of, say, $1,000 US, so you figure out the transition there. So let me just give you some context. The average commission here in Australia is about, say, $10,000 to $15,000, of which the average agent gets about half. So they get between $5,000 and $7,000, sometimes more, of course, but $5,000 to $7,000 per sale that gets transacted. And understand that the average earnings in Australia for a member of the general public might be about $50,000 to $70,000 a year. An average minimum wage kind of worker might be $30,000. An average, medium skill wage might be $40,000 to $60,000 somewhere. And really a good wage is $100,000. That's a really, really good wage per year. So understand that what that means is $1,000 a week is pretty good. So the average agent per commission gets about 5 weeks earnings. Now that's gross. They've still got to take their expenses out of that. Their marketing, advertising, coaching, paying crazy buggers like me, all of that sort of thing comes out of their gross. So, it's almost like one sale is for the average person out there in the world a month's kind of salary, if you will. So are your commissions, where one commission is to the average person who works at, a supermarket or a legal secretary or something, is your average commission about 4 weeks' wages gross? And I know you've got kind of expenses, 4 to 5 weeks. You know what I'm saying? I'm wanting to know first, are you well paid in your industry over there? And if the answer is no, then that's when we have to start thinking, right? So how do the most successful? I want you to question, what do the most successful people over in your neck of the woods do? And is it any better here? Because literally 9 out of 10 real estate agents who start in Australian real estate do not make it for their second year. And here's the thing, they don't go away because they're rolling in cash and they retire wealthy. They go out of this industry 90% of the time within 2 years because they can't make it work. Because they either can't make any money, they can't make enough money to cover their bills, they certainly don't make enough money to, earn hundreds of thousands of dollars, because then they wouldn't leave the industry if they were making $500,000 a year or something. So I want you to make some of those fundamental questions. Is it more lucrative to your success here than there? And the next question is, do you want to move? I mean, are there family to consider? Do you really want to migrate to the other side of the world to it? Now, if you do want to move and you're just looking for an excuse to come to Australia, then the next answer to your question is, if you could, now I don't know anything about sponsorship and about how, I know you can migrate to Australia and there are ways to get here, especially if you've got a job here. And what you would have to do is you would have to convince someone that you are an animal, meaning you'd have to look someone in the eye. And if you want to, if you could make make a video, and send it to me. If you're serious about this, I could get it in front of the right people, and who knows, one of them, because they all want, given that it's a 9 out of 10 failure rate, believe me, they all want the next one that's going to make it. They certainly want the next Chris Gilmore, Matt Steinway, Phil Harris. They want the next $1 million performer, because understand that the bosses, they get a cut of the commission of those superstar performers. So it's a win-win. They provide you an environment to succeed. You bring the work. They bring the licensing. You bring your skills and abilities and work and hours, and you put in, and you guys split the revenue, So they all want the next $1 million performer because they want $1 million to split. You get a bunch of it, they get a bunch of it, everyone's happy, right? Everyone's profitable. So if you can convince them that, I'd suggest that many of them would go hell or high water to sponsor you. Because now, again, I don't know the deal about bringing in a sponsored employee. I don't know what commitments an employer has to make to you. So what you need to do is, if that is even a significant commitment to you, then you need to make sure that they are so confident that you are going to work out for them that it's a no-brainer for them. That they know they're basically going to have to pay. They might have to commit to, I don't know, a minimum wage of $50,000 a year for 2 years or something. So what they need to feel is that the $100,000 they're investing in you over the course of the 2 years is going to return them $500,000, $1 million. And the way they would be confident of that is if essentially you just say, I'm moving to this country. I don't know how good looking you are or whatever, but you're going to say, I'm not socializing. I'm not having a girlfriend. I'm not having a life. I'm not having a hobby. I'm not having any leisure time. You know what my leisure time is going to be? Studying the business of real estate. And you know what my work time is going to be for 90 hours a week? It's going to be implementing what I study. So if I'm not sleeping, then I'm going to be working, including when I'm eating, I'm going to be reading a John McGrath book. When I'm drinking no alcohol, when I'm drinking a juice to keep my energy up, I'm going to be listening to an Eric Thomas or a Glenn Twiddle video. You know what I mean? If you made that commitment and you promised on the threat of being deported, I don't know what the rules are or whatever, but I'd suggest there'd be a bunch of people who would put their hand up to sponsor someone who is going to give their life up temporarily, right? See, that's the key. You give your life up for 3 or 4 years. You give everything you've got to this business, and it will reward you anything you want to be rewarded with, you know? So, but I tell you, if you want someone to make a commitment to you to sponsor you, then you're going to have to convince them, and convince them before you get here. Study the area that there may be, you know what I'm saying? You might have to do some of the work that you're going to do here from there. You know, you might have to start prospecting and marketing and generating leads, making phone calls from there, and show them that you're able to cover yourself as far as wages are concerned. You make that that case. You know, here we are. We're now in the legal fraternity. If you make that rock solid, ironclad, watertight case that you are worth backing, then I would suggest someone's going to back you if you want to come to Australia. But remember, if your desire to come to Australia is just because you think the grass is greener on the other side, then maybe rethink, because 9 out of 10 times the grass isn't greener. You know, I remember at seminars, I saw the great man, John McGrath. If you haven't seen much John McGrath, you got to check him out, right? He's the best. John said on stage once that he was over in New Zealand giving a talk. Now, John's from Sydney, and John was over in New Zealand giving a talk. And over in New Zealand, they were saying to John, I'll get the words wrong, but this is the principle. Oh, John, that all sounds great, but that doesn't work here. This, whatever the particular principle John was teaching, I think he was talking about, having sellers invest some money in advertising to advertise a property, where a seller pays a little bit up front to cover the cost of the advertising of the property. And in some areas of the world, that just doesn't happen. Like to some of my friends in America, that doesn't really happen. So, but in New Zealand, they were saying to John, that all sounds great, mate, but that whole thing won't work here. So then John come back to Australia, and he was in a different area, another state in Australia. And they were saying, yeah, John, I know that might work for you guys up in Sydney, but that won't work down here in Melbourne, or that won't work up here in Brisbane. You know, John was in another state, and they were saying the same thing. Yeah. And then John actually did a talk down in Sydney, in another area of Sydney, and said, yeah, John, that might work for you guys in your area, but won't work here. And John then, tongue-in-cheek, very jokingly said, I must be the most brilliant real estate person in the world, because what I've done is I've chosen the one area of 3 or 4 square kilometers where this stuff works. You know what I mean? I'm a genius. I picked the one area in the whole world where this stuff works. And what he was really saying is, this stuff will work wherever there are people. It's just that most of the people in that area, or if the whole area doesn't do it, then what I'm saying is it might take a little bit more work to make those people see the benefit in doing it this particular way. or whatever. Now, of course, there may be some legal things that may prohibit some of these things in some countries or whatever. I don't know. But what I'm saying is the statement, my area is different, is dangerous. That's just what I'm going to say. I've had people chop and change and move areas, and it's like it's like this poverty thing. The people who can't afford it. It's like someone tries an area and they can't make it work because none of the people got any money and nothing's good happening there. So they move to another area, and then all of a sudden this area that used to be really good, nothing good's happening there either. Then they move to another area, and it's like this blight area follows them all around. I wonder what the problem is. You know what I mean? Wherever you go, there you go. You know what I mean? So just make sure that some of these things are well considered before you decide on a course of action. Of course, family and friends and social and all of that, If you're willing to give up a little portion of your life, if you're going to live 70, 80 years, then you'll be giving up, say, 5% of your life where you do nothing but study success, study real estate, study marketing, study persuasion, study psychology, study all of these facets. If you're willing to do that and you want to come to Australia and you want a new life and you want to be successful and all that, then absolutely. My friend Tom Carlin over in WA is living testament to that. He left England. He came out here with his then fiance, and now they're split up. So he left there, came to Australia, and found an absolute haven for himself. Built himself an empire. He's still only he's about to turn 30. I met him when he was 26, 27. He's about to turn 30, so he's in his late 20s. He's built a multi-million-dollar performer, started in the business when he was 19, 20 years old or so, now 30, so he spent a decade of his life, and he's become a millionaire. He doesn't have to work anymore. But for every one Tom Carlin that just gives it everything he's got, which he did, his sort of byline that when Tom and I were working together, of course we still work together, but early in the piece when we started working together, we were sort of trying to come up with Tom's thing, whatever that is. Some people are, one of my guys is a Formula 3 race car champion, national champion. One of my mates is a surfing nut. So we're trying to come up with an angle that Tom shows his humanity, his personal, what he does. He doesn't do anything. He lives his business life. And that's what we come up with. My business is my life. And my business is you, meaning his area. So he gives his life for his work, for his area, for his community. So that's what he did. And he's certainly made it work to be an immigrant like that. And he's now, of course, one of the shining success stories of Australian real estate. So lots of things for you to consider, Jonathan. I know it's easy to send a message saying, should I move to Australia? It's a lot harder to consider that there's a 90% failure rate here in Australia over 2 years. When I say failure, some people, of course, get in and just find the industry isn't for them, and that's okay too. Look, I'm one of the ones who got in, did it for 6 years, but I found my calling was being a coach. I'm better at coaching real estate agents than I was at being one. It's like some of the basketball coaches who coach the NBA, or whatever your sport might be. Some of the coaches were never the greatest players. I was an above average player, but I wasn't the Michael Jordan of real estate by any stretch of the imagination. I was one of the fallouts after 6 years, and I was doing okay. Understand, I wasn't, earning less than that average. I was earning, 6 figures plus, but it was so I'm not saying that the 9 out of 10 fallout rate is all because they are broke and destitute and go bankrupt. That's not the case, of course. But 9 out of 10 people who say they want it at day one do not want it bad enough. Like, I'm wearing the T-shirt, and this is by accident, but when you want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe, on the back, it says, then you'll be successful, right? It's a quote by one of my mentors, Eric Thomas. Most of them who say they want it really bad, they say they want it, but they just kind of want it. They want to do it so long as the business will allow them to do it the way they want to do it in their time frame, in their schedule, with their activities, with what they're willing to tolerate. And the minute the business gives them something that they don't want to tolerate, then they don't want it anymore, and they'll go find another way to get to where they want to get to on their terms. And that's okay too. But 9 out of 10 say they want to be a successful real estate agent and never become one. to the degree they want to become. So those are some of the things to think about, bud. But with all that said, man, if you want it as bad as you want to breathe, seriously, then yeah, let's make contact again, bud, and let's see if you really do. If you really do, then I guarantee if you give your 3 years of your life. Now, I don't even know how good your accent is, right? So you might have to do English elocution classes. Now, you might already speak perfect English. I don't even know, right? This is my ignorance talking here. So no offense allowed, because it's ignorance that's speaking, nothing more. You might need to, if you will give yourself to giving this industry whatever it requires, then I know you can be successful. I know you can, because we've mapped out a formula. The problem is, will you do it? Will you be up at 4, 5 a.m. every day? Will you work late? Will you be, as Brian Tracy, the great Brian Tracy says, will you be first to come and last to leave? Will you upset your boss and say, dude, you only want to get here at 8 a.m.? No, I need the keys to the office because I need to be here at 5 a.m. and have the boss cranky. You need the boss to be sitting there going, man, we've got to close up shop. It's 7 o'clock at night. No, I still got 3 or 4 hours. Leave the keys. I'll turn the lights off. You need to be willing to do whatever it takes. If you are, then I guarantee you'll be successful. But the thing is, most won't do it. So there it is. Some food for thought. That's not just for you, Jonathan. I know that rant is for way more people, even here in Australia, who maybe needed to hear some of those harsh realities about what they are and are not willing to do. You should check the schedules of a Tom Carlin, Chris Gilmore, Matt Steinway, James Tostovan, Marcus Ciminello, Michael Spillane, Jody Curran, Amber Wersch. You should see their schedules when they were in their first couple of years of real estate. Let me go through a few of them. Chris Gilmore used to be in the office at 5 a.m. In the office, not waking up at 5 a.m. They call the 5 a.m. club those who wake up at 5 a.m. No. Wake up at whatever, 4, so he could be in the office fully suited up, ready to work at 5 for years, 5 a.m. till 9 o'clock at night, that sort of thing. Amber Wersch, I remember Amber, we were on stage doing an interview and we were talking about this. Her early years, she called them her talk time. 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. she'll be talking to human beings in her area, prospecting, about listing properties or whatever. If you wanted an administration thing, or if you wanted to talk to her about anything, you needed to do it before 8 a.m. or after 8 p.m. So even if that's 6 days a week, that's 6 times 12 hours, that's $72 productive hours per week, plus another however many 20 hours of admin in her week. You give that sort of effort, I don't care how well you speak English, because what we'll do is in those 72 hours, in those outside of hours, those 20 hours, we'll get you speaking perfect, understandable English, if you're not already. And I'm just making assumptions that may or may not be true. But you know what I'm saying? You're willing to give it all, you'll be successful. If you're not, maybe find a way to make it work there. You know what I mean? Like I said, there's still ways, I still think, because I don't know everything, I don't know anything about the market there. There may be a way for you to make it successful there as well. Lots to think about, Jonathan. Have a good think. Yeah, man, I look forward to hearing what this has done for you, bud. All right, mate. Until next time, folks, another episode of the GT Show. Kind of dominated by Sweden there, but I know there's some food for thought for all of you. All right, guys, until next time.